everyone! Today we're going to learn about angles as they pertain to triangles. So we're going to start with a quick refresher. I'm going to try to zoom through this as quickly as I can so that you can get to the practice. So refreshing your memory on different types of triangles. Okay, if all the angles are the same and all the sides are the same, we call that equilateral. If there's a right angle, we call it a right triangle. If two angles are the same, that means that the two opposite sides are the same. And when you have two sides that are the same, we call that isosceles. Okay, when all the sides and all the angles are different, we call that scalene. When the angles are less than 90, we call that acute. And when you have one angle that's larger than 90, we know those are obtuse angles, so that's an obtuse triangle. Go ahead and flip the page. Okay, so really cool property about triangles is if you were to cut up the three different corners, or I guess not really corners, three different vertexes, okay, and doesn't matter how you cut them, what your pieces look like, if you laid them out on a straight line, they would fit perfectly, meaning that those three angles make a straight angle, meaning that the three interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. And that's one of our most important properties. Okay, really all you need to know about the interior angles of a triangle. And that helps us solve for different angles. So if you look at the example here, we know that the measure of QRP is 48, PQR is 31. We want to find the third missing angle. And because all three have to add up to 180, we very simply make an equation. X plus 48 plus 31 equals 180 because they're the three interior angles of a triangle. 48 plus 31, 79 equals 180. Subtract, and x equals 101 degrees. And what's nice about these is if you were to check, which I would always encourage, especially on a quiz or a test, okay, if you did 101 plus 48 plus 31, it better add up to 180 degrees. I'd like you to try this problem here on the next page. It should only take you a minute or so, so you can pause and come back to me when you're ready to check the answer. Okay, now that you've tried this on your own, let's go over it. P plus 35 plus 57 must add up to 180 because they're the three interior angles of the triangle. P plus 92 equals 180. Subtract, get P by itself. P has a measure of 180 degrees. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now we can look at isosceles triangles, and these are just ever so slightly more complicated because you have to remember that in an isosceles triangle, two of the angles are the same, meaning that the opposite sides are also the same or congruent. Okay, so these little hash marks here tell me that these two sides have the same length, they're congruent. And if these two sides are the same, then the opposite angles must also be the same. So if this angle is x, then this is also x. And now we have the three interior angles of the triangle, and we can solve for x by saying x plus 40 equals 180. 2x plus 40 equals 180. Subtract, we get 2x equals 140, divided by 2, x equals 70. So the measure of angle R is 70 degrees, measure of angle Q is 70 degrees, and then P was already 40. Go ahead and try the question below. Come back to me when you're ready. Now that you've tried this on your own, let's solve it. And this one is slightly different. Hopefully you noticed. They gave you that these two sides were congruent, but you probably already knew that because they also gave you those two angles are the same. So in this one, you're only solving for one of the three angles. So it's set up like this: x plus 55 plus 55 equals 180. X plus 110 equals 180. X equals 70 degrees. When you're all set, go ahead and flip the page. You have 3 on this page to try. I'm going to let you pause the video and come back to me. I'll give you the answers, but we'll have to go over it tomorrow if you're stuck on any of them. So go ahead and pause and come back. Okay, now that you've tried these on your own, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answers. Mark any that you're stuck on, and we can talk about them tomorrow. This one, you should have got that y equals 61 degrees. For number 2, you should have got y equals 136 degrees. For this one, there were a couple of steps happening here, but you should get that y equals 28 degrees. So correct your papers, mark anything you need me to go over, and let's move on. Now that you've mastered interior angles, I want to talk about exterior angles because those also have properties when it comes to triangles. Okay, so this says, in the diagram below, the sides of triangle ABC have been extended to form angles 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, 6. Because these angles lie outside the triangle, they are called exterior. Angles 7, 8, and 9 are also exterior. So depending on which direction you extend those sides, you'll get different exterior angles. Now here's where our rule and our properties come from. So if you look in here, okay, it says the interior angle 3, okay, this here, and exterior angle 4 are adjacent angles on a straight line. Okay, and what do we know about angles on a straight line? You know it, they add up to 180. So we can say that the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees. I'm going to jot that down here. Measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 4 equals 180. Okay. We also know that angles 1 plus 2 plus 3 must add up to 180 because they're the 3 interior angles of a triangle. That's what we just learned moments ago. So let's jot that down. That if you add up angle 3 plus angle 2 plus angle 1, it equals 180. Okay? Now what we're seeing here is in both these equations, okay, they both have angle 3 and they're both equal to 180. So we can actually set these two pieces equal and say that the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 4. And if we look at the picture, hopefully this makes a lot more sense. Okay, this angle 4, which is exterior, is equal to angle 1 plus angle 2. So the sum of those two interior angles. And that's the rule, that's the property. It's a little funky, but it'll always work. Okay, so what we know here is exterior angles of a triangle is always supplementary to its adjacent angle. And here's the important one. Exterior angles are always equal to the sum of the opposite two interior angles of the triangle. And once you're done with that, let's flip the page so that we can practice and understand what that really means. Okay, so we're solving for the variable. We want to find the value of x. Because x is an exterior angle, we can say that this angle x is equal to the two opposite interior angles added up. And what I mean by opposite is the two angles that are not right next to it. So this is adjacent, this is right next to x. That's the angle we're not using. We're going to use the 60 and the 50. So very simply, we can just say that x equals 50 plus 60. And the reason that that's true is because it's an exterior angle, and those are the two opposite interior angles. So we have x equals 110 degrees. Okay. If you didn't like doing that, you could have solved for this angle. Okay, you would have found that it was 70 degrees, and then 70 plus what adds up to 180. So you do have options. That's what's cool about these, is they're kind of like a puzzle. Let's look at this one. Now this is tricky because y is not the full exterior angle. The full exterior angle is everything here. Okay, so we're going to say that this whole piece here, the y and the 55, is equal to the two opposite interior. So add these two up and set them equal. So we can say y plus 55 equals 45 plus 30. Okay. Y plus 55 equals 75. Subtract y equals 20 degrees. Okay. I'd like you to try questions 3 and 4 below, and we'll go over them in a minute. Now that you've tried these, let's go over it quickly. This is your exterior angle. It must be equal to the sum of the two interiors. So we could say that 132 is equal to x plus 62. Subtract 62. X equals 70 degrees. Over here, this whole exterior angle is equal to the sum of the opposite interior. So x plus 35 equals 70 plus 41. You should get that x equals 76 degrees. Correct your papers and then flip it over. Okay, so again, we're going to look at isosceles triangles. They have some unique properties, which we saw on the previous section here when we were doing interior angles. Now we're going to look at exterior. So we want to find the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2. So we have some investigating to do. First of all, if these two sides are equal, then these two angles are equal. So maybe to make life easy, we'll call angle 2x, which means that that angle there is also x. And what do we know about the sum of the three interior angles of a triangle? You got it. They add up to 180. So we'll say that x plus 120 equals 180. 2x plus 120 equals 180. 2x equals 60. X equals 30. Okay, so now we know that this is 30, this is 30, and that's 120. And now we have enough information to solve for angle 1. And you can actually do this one of two ways. First, you could say, well, this is exterior, so I'm going to add up the opposite to interior and say that the measure of angle 1 equals 30 plus 30. So the measure of angle 1 equals 60 degrees. Your other option is to say, well, these two angles are on a straight line, which means they must add up to 180. So you could also say that the measure of angle 1 plus 120 equals 180. And either way, you're going to get that the measure of angle 1 equals 60, and then we knew down here the measure of angle 2 is 30. Go ahead and flip the page when you're all set. I want you to take the time to practice number 5. Okay, it's an isosceles triangle, so it has some of those unique properties. We're going to skip number 6. Okay, so try number 5, pause, and come back when you're ready. Okay, now that you've tried this, there's a few things you should have learned. if this is 75 here, then this is also 75. Okay. Angle 1 is exterior, so in order to find its measure, we can add these two up. So measure of angle 1 equals 75 plus 75. Measure of angle 1 equals 150. And then angle 2, okay, we know that these two add up to 180. So that's probably your easiest bet, is to say, okay, measure of angle 2 plus 75 equals 180. Subtract 75. Okay, and that's where we end up. Correct your papers as needed. And then what I'd like you to do for homework is the mixed practice that remains in the rest of the packet. Okay, jot down any questions you might have, and I'll see you tomorrow.